Welcome to From Head to Heart and Home, a channel created by women for women, encouraging you to have inspired action and empowering you to make the choices to have the life you want. With your hosts, Shanda Ceretti, certified transformational coach, and Carla Center, subconscious healer and relationship coach. So today, another, as usual, exciting topic. So today we wanted to talk about your part and what your part is in your life. And we are so excited because there's so much to this juicy topic, and I'm going to let Shanda start it.
Mm.
And let's just see what kinds of great nuggets we share with you guys.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one because I feel like this is your jam, Carla, and I feel like you are going to shine in a very big way. So I'm excited to see where this goes because those of you, excuse me, who don't know, the topic came about um, around what Carla does with clients. So, which is always super fun. So I'm looking forward to that. So what we're talking about here is owning your part in your life. So how are you showing up and in what way are you showing up that is creating the reality in the life that you currently have? And for those of you who are like, "Oh, what are you talking about? Like I have no part in my life right now. Like I did not create this." I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I am here to tell you with so much love and grace that you absolutely have the biggest part in creating your life because you are the only person who creates it. So with that big nugget unfolding, I'd like to pass the ball back to Carla because she brought up some really good things before we started recording, and I would really like to see where those lead us. But I wanted to start with that juicy nugget first, lay some groundwork.
Absolutely. So it is really something for us. It's a big epiphany when you really are able to understand that our relationships and our life come from patterns that we have. And
Hmm.
many of those come from our childhood. And it's hard to go, how the heck do my relationships that I have with my partner come from my childhood? And maybe it doesn't even look like your parents' relationship did, right? But I guarantee that there is some part in how your relationship was with your parents that is playing its way out in your current life.
Yeah. Can I jump in there for a quick second?
Absolutely.
Because I love that. And here's the thing, too. The patterns, what we do sometimes, and this is so fascinating, is that instead of recreating the exact pattern, we actually create the opposite. So we try to swing the pendulum so far the other way that we create the opposite experience that we had. But again, not in a healthy way, in a very unhealthy way, right?
Right.
So it's almost
Right.
like, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's because we have no balance. There's no
Right.
balance in their pendulum or ours.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say it's like the person who um maybe wasn't allowed to eat like cookies or something growing up. Like no, 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 it was always no, no cookies, no cookies, no cookies. And then finally when this person gets out on their own, they're probably gonna go have a complete love affair with cookies and eat cookies as much as they want and not restrict themselves in a way that they always felt. But then it goes the opposite way, right? So it becomes very unhealthy because they're overindulging. That's just the example, but yeah.
Right, right. Because if you felt controlled,
Hmm.
you're going to be hyper independent because you don't want to feel like somebody controls you. So you're less likely to find that balance with somebody else, that real connection. You're like, ooh, I don't want to give them any control.
Hmm.
And that keeps you from having that true connection with somebody because I can't let you too close to me because you might try and control me, because my experience from childhood is I give a little bit of myself and you're going to take all of me.
Hmm. Yeah, it's like this, it's almost like a scarcity mentality right?
Right.
I have to hold on to what I do have because I don't have enough or I don't have a lot, which then plays off of what we were talking about again before around this enoughness, right? It's
Right.
like we're all seeking to be enough, to know enough, to have enough. It's just this quest of enoughness, but we always forget that it's innate, right? Our enoughness is innate. We are born with it. It can't be given or taken away. There's nothing you can do or can't do that will change that. And knowing that is such a huge piece to the puzzle because it's this like I don't even know how to really articulate it, but it's like this coming into your heart, knowing, I'm already enough. You might not
Right.
feel like it because of certain situations or experiences, but you are. And being able to validate that for yourself inside of yourself, I am enough, right? Creating like that affirmation or whatever you need to help yourself understand that it's innate, it's there, it's always been there. It's learning to connect with it, right?
Right. And when you're trying to earn your enough, you do things to earn that instead of doing
Ah,
things out of love and compassion. And when you do things out of love and compassion, your relationships are so much different. But if you've had to earn as you believe, and
right.
it's not that you didn't have things happen that caused that belief, right? It's not like we're not saying that, life was like so easy and then you decided I have to earn my enough. There are things in childhood and we don't realize we have these patterns. That's why we talk about patterns often. We have you journal about what you see,
Mm,
awareness. But these patterns happen and the people pleasers love you. You're my peeps. That has been me most of my life. You have spent so much time trying to be enough and you walk on eggshells. By the way, that's manipulation. I was talking to Shanda. People like, what do you mean I was manipulating? You weren't being authentic to the other person. You were
mm,
doing things just to avoid your belief in what their reaction or action would be. And maybe that is their action or reaction, but that means possibly it's not the right person to have in your life. Whereas we're like, okay, well, if I'm enough, they'll treat me better. If I'm enough, our relationship will be better. And so
mm.
we get into this pattern of disempowering ourselves, being inauthentic to create what we believe will be the perfect combination to have the relationship we want.
Yeah. And it's going back to the patterns and the childhood patterns and the innate worthiness. There's more birthrights than that, but we'll just stick on that. And what happens is at some point very early on in our lives, right? Within like, I would even say the first 6 months, but it could be all the way up to 7 years, the birthright becomes impaired. And what happens when we feel like we've lost that birthright, we then set out to find confirmation. And when we set out to find confirmation, that means we're looking to mom or dad or our guardian, whoever, for that confirmation, for them to give it to us, whatever that thing is, right? If it's that enoughness, oh, okay, they're approving of me, or they're loving me because I'm doing this, right? So we then have these falsehoods of like I need to earn it. It's not just given to me, right? And so there starts those patterns that then we carry with us throughout our lives that manifest in so many different ways, like Carla was talking about with relationships, right? Like think of the relationships you've been in, and especially like I want to even go back to like when we're really young, like those first loves, like teenager or wherever, however old you were when you first had yours. And this feeling of like needing to be that everything for that person, needing to be that enoughness for that person. It's funny because we're not even trying to have it like, it's not even for us that we're trying to create this. It's for that other person. And what happens if, unless you're still with that first love, which if you are, congratulations, that's amazing. I am not, and it's totally okay because I've learned a lot along the way. But I was going somewhere with that and now I totally lost my thought. So then what happens is we end up losing ourselves in that relationship totally. We get
Right.
totally lost because we unhook from our own self to try and please, like you were saying, people pleasers, to try and
Mhm.
please that person and give that person everything. We literally give them everything we can, including like who we are, right? Which is so fascinating.
Right. And then we get lost in that and we look to them to give us,
Yeah.
and I talk to clients all the time about this. So you're giving everything you have and there's nothing left for you, which means you expect somebody else to fill your cup.
Yes. That's
And and
expect.
and so then we're like, okay, well then you're just not my soulmate, you're not my perfect match, you're not
Mm,
whatever because you haven't filled me up and I have filled you up. This is all the stuff I did for you. Here is I can write it all out for you and this is where you are not meeting my needs because in reality we haven't met our own needs and we're expecting it of someone
right.
else because we've decided they didn't decide. We decided to give them everything we believe they need.
Yeah,
And a beautiful relationship has I'm whole, you're whole, and we enhance each other.
that's right. That's right.
We don't look for the other person to fill some hole that we have in us.
Right.
This hole that we believe is there. Okay, if you fill me, I'll fill you.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I'm having a bad day, hopefully you're not, because I
Mm-hmm.
can't fill you and you can fill me, right? And it just causes these patterns in relationships where we both feel unfulfilled and then we're like, well, I fell out of love. They're this,
Mm-hmm.
they're that.
It creates
Instead
like
of,
resentment, right?
yes,
Eventually. Yeah.
yeah,
And I think what's also important to know, and honestly, I don't know if I knew this until like later in life. So I'll just be totally honest because I was always that, but I still am a romantic, right? Grew up with the fairy tales and wanted to be swept off my feet by Prince Charming. Like those are the stories we're told. So like that's just what I wanted. And I learned eventually that you actually have to put in effort to maintain a healthy relationship. It's not a given. It's not something that you wake up with and go to bed with in a sense, like unless you're willing to put in that effort. In the
right,
beginning things are easy, yes, and hopefully that lasts for a long long time, but you know life brings challenges and we all deal with those in different ways, and I think it's like learning to understand how your partner acts in certain situations is really important. But I think at the end of the day, what I've learned to be true for me is that communication is key. Communication, to be willing and to be, yeah, just to be willing. I was going to say able, but to be willing to talk about the things, no matter
right,
how simple they might feel or how complex or uncomfortable they might be. It's learning to voice how you feel, not making that person responsible for making you feel a certain way, right? Which is what we
yes,
typically do. You said this and it made me feel like this. And it's like, okay, no, because then we're accusing. But sharing how you're feeling when it's good and when it's not so good. Because
yes,
it's interesting, we typically don't share how we're feeling when we're good. Just like we don't typically acknowledge the good things in our lives. We
right,
only acknowledge the stuff that's not working and the stuff that's not going well. And it's the same in relationships too. We tend to focus on the things that aren't working. And it's like, yeah, but that might be one thing. What about all these other things that are
right,
working so well? So again, coming back to like, what is your part in that thing that's not working?
right.
How have you created this? How have you fueled this fire, so to speak? Right? What's your part?
Right. And remember, when you're not communicating with your partner, you've created a story that you're not willing to share with them. And so you're perpetuating that story
Yes.
and not giving them the chance to sometimes they say something and
Mm,
you completely have it out of context because your part is your reaction and your actions.
right.
So I don't want to communicate with you. This hurt my feelings. And this is how I took it. And
Yeah.
they're like, that
Oh,
is not what I meant.
right.
Not even close. And and
Yeah.
many times they'll be like, that's not what I meant. I'm sorry. Here's what I meant. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I created this big thing out of something that was not even their intention.
Yeah. And interestingly enough, too, like you were saying, when we don't communicate, we are literally withholding the opportunity to heal that thing and fix that thing
Yes.
because it's by not communicating, that's an intentional choice. I'm not
Yes.
going to say anything. It's like, but what if you did say the thing from a place of love again, right? Like Carla and I are always saying from love, from love, from love, because we mean it, right? But if you aren't willing, and it just takes a willingness to communicate that thing, you're not allowing that relationship to grow and heal and blossom into that next phase. Like, right? And so think of over time, if you keep doing that, what the implication or the compound effect that that's going to have negatively on your relationship versus the opposite. It's like, okay, what if every time something happens, good, bad, whatever, good, bad, we voice it and we share it and we communicate about it so that we can just keep moving on. And it's like, oh, okay, that thing's done. Because I'm sure all of you listening, I'll speak from experience, but when we bury something, it festers, right?
Yes.
And it's under there and it's always under there. And we get really good at hiding it until we can't hide it anymore because it's just too big. And then it ends up blowing up into something that isn't even relative to what that initial thing was,
Right.
which is wild because if you listen to most arguments, it's never about how it initially started. It's usually about
Right.
something that happened 25 years ago or 10 years ago or, you know, and again, going back to those patterns, right?
Right. And understand that if you don't take initiative and look at your own patterns, learn how to communicate, and eventually your relationship dissolves. The
Mm,
two of you can no longer handle it. Your next relationship will have these same things because your part is still your part. You
right.
still have that pattern. And by the way, you will be attracted to the same kind of person because
Mhm.
that's how it is. We are subconsciously attracted to the same kind of person. And we still haven't learned our own lesson in how to communicate with this person, how to understand them and understand ourselves, and we perpetuate it.
Yeah, it's the concept of the grass is greener on the other side. Oh, I need to leave this relationship because it's no longer working and it's going to be better over here. And it's like, okay, but you did not work on any of the things. You're just going to be like, I'm out. Bye. I don't want to deal with this. And like you were saying, Carla, we bring that stuff to the next relationship. And how fascinating that we will find ourselves in a similar relationship. It won't maybe necessarily be the exact details that are happening, but the things will be unfolding in the same type of way, having the
Right.
same impact on you. And what I think that is really fascinating and interesting and actually kind of beautiful is that it's again, you're being presented with the opportunity to move past that thing.
Right.
So no longer thinking the grass is greener on the other side, instead of wishing and wanting and wondering what's over there. And it's like, no, no, no. I'm going to love and enjoy what's right here. I'm going to nurture my own garden. I'm going to water what I have here and
Right.
now and watch that grow and flourish instead of being like, yeah, but over there, look at all the things over there. And it's like, no, no, no. Like we get to tend to our own gardens, like to our own
Right.
lives right now, right? And be willing once again to do the work, to put in the effort that it's going to take. Because guess what? It's it was requiring you to take effort in the relationship you were in before. And it's also going to require you to put an effort into the next one. So if you're
Right.
like, I don't want to do that, then you will just be one of those serial daters or whatever, where you bounce around from one to the next. And this can be applied to whatever jobs, friendships, like whatever places where you live. When we avoid doing the work that's being asked of us to do, you will keep recreating the thing. It doesn't matter how far you move, doesn't matter how much money you make, doesn't matter if you end up dating Brad Pitt or someone else, you know what I mean? Like it will keep happening.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Including if, like, say you're in an abusive relationship,
Right.
say you are in one. So, do you need to get out for your safety? get
Mm,
out for your safety. However, you are still the person that was attracted to and in played your part in that. So you have to look at, okay, what did I do during that relationship that has brought me more pain and kept me from being safe?
mm,
Healing. I've seen clients go from one to the next, and then somebody they're reached out to when they're looking to date, and they're reached out by somebody who wants to communicate somebody's healthy, and they're like, ooh, that's scary. No, because it's unfamiliar, right? And so I always pose this: what if you stopped, did some healing for yourself
mhm.
so that you can see the familiar that is not safe and healthy for you?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what you brought up there, it brings up a really great question for me. Oftentimes, like if we're going to like an abusive relationship pattern, we will think in our heads, or if something negative or bad happens, we're like, well, what did I do? What did I do? I don't know what I did. And instead of asking that question, what if we ask, who was I being?
Mhm.
Right? How did I show up to this relationship? Because again, going back to the very first thing we opened with, you are contributing and you are creating the life that you're living. And it's
Right,
by who you're being, it's by the choices you're making and the actions you're taking based on what you're thinking and how you're feeling.
right,
Right. So we can go back to those childhood patterns and pinpoint certain thoughts, certain limiting beliefs, and heal those limiting beliefs so that we can have different feelings. And then from those healthier feelings, take new actions and create new results. And that's what this work is all about. It's digging down underneath to find the limiting beliefs, to find the thoughts and the patterns, bring them up to the surface with love, look at them, and then decide, what do I want to keep? Because I'm not saying that everything is bad about our past, or all of our thoughts are bad, or all of our patterns are bad. That's not true. So we get to decide, what do I want to keep? What is working for me? And then let go of the things that aren't serving you any longer and aren't working for you, and then replace them with something that will, right? So I think that's also a step that we forget too, is the replacement part. We just want to remove all the stuff. Just take it all out. I just want it all gone. Okay, great. But what are we filling it with? If we don't fill it with anything, it's like I think of like when you're digging in the sand and the dry sand keeps coming back down in the hole. That's just what happens. The old will just come back down in if you're not intentionally replacing it with something you want there. If you don't pick, well, you're always picking. But if you're not intentionally picking, your subconscious is going to pick for you, and it's going to pick what it already knows, and it's going to pick what's already there because that's easy.
right. Great. And so when you do the different exercises that we talk about, like when you burn, what I
Yeah.
have my clients write out all that you want to get rid of, and also what do you want? And you
Right.
burn that, and then you take in all the things you want to bring into your life. Because we these patterns are just what our subconscious mind has done to keep us safe. We're
Mm,
not just telling you you're bad, that you're wrong. We're letting you know we all have patterns, and we have to look at the patterns that are getting us to where we don't want to be, and then we get to let those go and be like, okay, what are the things that I love that are happening so far? Because we have good stuff. Nobody's life is all bad.
yeah.
It depends on how we perceive what's going on with us.
Mm,
What's been good so far, and what do I want to add? What do I want to add to my life? What do I want more? Do I want good communication? You want good communication in your relationship? Guess what that means? You get to be a good communicator. It's not just,
yes.
okay, I'm just going to pluck somebody that's a great communicator and it will all be solved. I can
Yeah.
still avoid and stew and all of that stuff, and then we're going to be great because that my partner is a good communicator. No, I get to work on my communication
Right.
and be, you know, if you feel like there's communication not happening, be honest. Hey, I think we should work on our communication. Not you should work on your communication. We should
Right.
work on it because it's a two-way street.
Yeah. Yeah. I love what you're saying about like being the generator, right? It's like oftentimes what happens is that we take the reactive standpoint and as opposed to a proactive. So what I mean by that is we're waiting, we're leaned back, disengaged from our life, right? Waiting for someone to come along and do the thing. Right. Like I can relate to that so hardcore about most things. I was like waiting for these things to come knock on my door. And I was like, well, that's not going to happen. So, like, maybe go outside and see what's out there and go from there. So, creating what we want. It's about saying, hey, okay, like Carla was saying, I want more communication, better communication in my life. Okay, how do you get to create that? What part can you take in creating that? That is your responsibility. If you feel like you want something, well, it's not this person's job over here to go create it for you and give it to you. No, you get to create it for yourself, right? It's like taking the reins, like, I got this. I'm going to do this. Let's go.
Right. Right. And just like, we've talked about self-love, when you want a relationship where you can pour into your own cup, that
Hmm.
is a choice you get to make. You get to say, "Hey, I have to set aside this time to do something for me." It's a choice you're making. It is not somebody else's responsibility to tell us to go take care of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We tend to nurture our partner and do that,
Mm-hmm.
which, by the way, is a choice of ours. They don't have to tell us. We get to choose. Okay, how am I going to nurture myself? How am I going to nurture my relationships to have what I want in my life? Not how am I going to give till I have nothing left and then somebody else can come pour into me, save me so that I can pour it all back out.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, what's coming up for me too right now is this whole, if we're giving from a place of trying to get, again, it kind of goes back to what Carla was saying, where it's manipulation and then we're creating expectations on people. And so we really need to get to a place of we're giving and we're creating because it's what we're being called to do, right? Like we're giving from our heart. And when we give, what naturally starts to happen is that we will receive because we can't give what we don't have, right? And so that's why we're always saying it starts with you. It starts within. You got to give that to yourself first. And then once you have given it to you, you can then turn around and give it to others. And then this beautiful reciprocity flow of give take just naturally happens. This flow, this balance happens. And by the way, what I kind of find interesting and I want to share is that balance isn't like, I don't see balance like something that is steady like this all the time. Balance is almost like something that's moving. Like
Yes.
again, we always go back to Mother Nature. Let's go back there again for a second and look at the seasons. There's perfect balance in the four seasons where I live anyway, right? We have summer, fall, winter, and spring, and there's a beautiful balance there. But there's also those in between times, right? And so it's not about consistently staying here. It's about learning to keep moving through all the
Yes.
things. And that is what creates that balance, not
Right.
being stagnant and stuck.
Right. It's that flow.
Yeah.
And as you get that flow of things being from the heart, you'll notice resentment goes
Mm,
away, guilt, shame, all of that because you're giving from your heart. You're not giving because you expect a
right,
specific thing in return.
right.
And it also allows for the people in your life to give from their heart. And then when you find people that it doesn't feel like that's what it is, then you're like, okay, maybe this person has a different spot in my life than they have right now, right? And that's not judging them. It's just like, I want my flow and I want to be able to give from my heart and not go back to resentment, guilt, shame.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I would like to bring up something that we were talking about before. And it was around this whole idea of like, because since we're talking about like what's your part in your life, right? Around this whole idea of like picking and being picked, right? I think that's a really fascinating thing to talk about. So maybe we can kind of finish our conversation on this and see where this goes. So I'll let you, because you're the one that brought it up. So please share with everybody what we were talking about.
Okay, absolutely. Because culturally, and I'm going to say as women, because I'm a woman, I understand where us women come from. We are raised to want to be picked from this. I want, if a partner picks me, then I'm worthy.
Mm,
Please pick me, like the fairy tales that Shanda was talking about. In every one of them, of the fairy tales we've seen, the girl was picked, right?
mm,
There's of all these, most of them have a ton of girls that could have been picked. I'm worthy because I'm the one that was picked. Um, I'm the one who's pretty enough, smart enough, whatever the enoughness is. It fosters enoughness. It fosters competition between us ladies, by the way.
mm,
Uh, and so we're looking at not this healthy relationship, but somebody picking me. And please, somebody pick me so I'm not alone.
mm.
This desperation, this like, I have to be a certain person. If I get this perfect combination of beauty and all the things that I've been taught men want, I'll be picked. And then I'm a prize.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not a person.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, it's so fascinating because it brings up so many things, but like the sister wound, or the woman wound, or I think sister wound is probably the best way to describe it. Going back to like the competition that unspokenly just arises from that. And it's the same with men too, but like Carla was saying, we can't really speak on that because we're not men. So we didn't have that experience, but creating this competition, right, between women and sisters and friends and family. And going back again, it's like, when I talk about trauma, I heard a quote around, it may not have started with you, but it gets to end with you. So like even something like that, like what if you were the one that was like, no more. I'm not partaking in this anymore. I have no more. I am not willing to tolerate being or feeling like I'm in competition with my sisters, right? With other women, because there is no competition, right? Like, really, when you think about it, there is no competition. It feels like it, but there's not really competition. We are attracted to who we're attracted to for the multitude of reasons. And it's really hard to put two people side by side and really compare them, because everybody's so different and unique, which is so beautiful. So what if the part that you get to play moving forward in just that one example is like, I'm not willing to tolerate this anymore. And furthermore, where else can you apply that in your life? I'm no longer willing to tolerate this or this or this. And I don't mean from a place of like restriction and like, oh my gosh, I'm putting up all these boundaries that are unhealthy. I mean, in the ways where you're like, I'm no longer willing to tolerate this type of abusive relationship. I'm no longer willing to tolerate the lack of communication. And by the way, it then gets turned back on you to be the one that goes and creates that healing, right? So it always starts with you. You declare what you're no longer willing to tolerate, and then you go take the action to back that up.
Right. And just think about the beauty that can come from this. If we're no longer competing with each other and we're allowing each other to be our authentic selves and seeing the beauty in our uniqueness, the
Right.
beauty in not trying to be the exact same person who is
Mm,
not us,
mm,
we support each other instead of getting together and gossiping about each other, about putting each other down. You know, the just sheer love that comes from that versus the just pain that comes from us being in competition with each other.
yeah.
It's a huge shift that we get to choose to say, like Shanda said, I'm no longer going to participate.
Right. Yeah. And it's like, think of it like this. And I think you were touching on this, Carla. It's like when we feel like we're in competition, we're then trying to be something for someone. We're trying to
Mhm.
fill something for someone, right? But if it's not authentically who we are, then we're severing from our authenticity, which again is painful and uncomfortable and creates so much challenge and sadness and grief for us that we don't even understand. So we need to let go of this need and want to fill a certain role for somebody and just stand true in who we are and know that the right things, the right people are there. They're there and we get to go find them, not them come find us so that we can be swept off our feet like
Right.
Cinderella, right?
Right.
Like get out of the castle, get into the woods, take your high heels off and roam around. Now that's totally just like a metaphor. I don't actually mean any of those things, but go explore life. Don't
Right.
wait for it to come to you because if you wait, that means you're sitting back. It means you're disengaged from life, which means you're not taking any intentional action. You're just waiting. And who knows what's going to come your way.
Right. Exactly. Or you're putting all of your energy into being somebody else
Right.
and you're exhausted and you feel that hole I was talking about before. You feel empty because you have given all your energy to being somebody who is not this
Yeah.
beautiful, authentic woman that you are
Yeah.
to fulfill. And then you're always worried they're going to figure it out, right? Oh God, they're going to see me. They're going to figure out that that's
Yeah.
not really me.
Yeah. And you know what's hilarious? What you were just saying about like being authentic versus not. Being authentic is the easiest thing we can do. And here's how we know this to be true. When you're home alone, you probably act in the most silliest, craziest, bizarre ways because nobody's watching and you are yourself. But
Right.
as soon as you get people coming around, you start to change. And so being authentic is easy. It is our go to autopilot. So think of all the times when you're being inauthentic and how stressful that is. Like Carla was saying, I'm going to be figured out. They're going to find out that I'm this or I like this or I do this. And it's like, just be yourself, man, woman.
Right. Right. Right.
Mm,
And it allows more energy for the things, the exploring that Shanda's talking
mm.
about, the finding things in your life that you're like, oh, I didn't even know that brought me joy because I had been so focused on who I'm supposed to be
Right. And you,
that I didn't explore.
again, you touched on something else. Being authentic is energizing. Being
Yes.
inauthentic is draining, right? Like, I mean, if these aren't all signs pointing to what we're talking about here, like, hello.
Yeah. And just know it's in you. Do have compassion for yourself, have love for yourself. Whatever has happened in the past, that's okay. We're not saying go look at yourself, judge yourself. We're saying, hey, look, this is how we were programmed from a small child, but we can stop and go like, okay, what are the patterns? Because I don't want to feel this way anymore. I don't want to be exhausted trying to be all the things. Like, I don't know about you. I was trying to be the perfect mom. There is no such thing.
Mm,
And being the mom to your child, they need you. They
yeah,
don't need somebody else.
right. Yeah. I love it. I mean, I heard a quote and you know me and my quotes. And this one just really stuck. And I actually remember who said this one. It was Terrence Howard. And he said, find the piece of you that is in someone else and speak to that piece, right? Again, like we're all authentic, we're all completely unique and different, but we all come from the same. And so we all have this connection and this piece in us that is in everyone. And when you can find the familiarity or the common ground, it's like just speak to that, right? And connect with that. And anyways, if you can create that in your life will change like right before your eyes. It'll be completely different,
Right.
right? Coming
Right.
from love.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's what we want for you all is to have this feeling of truly getting to be yourself and being like, okay, it's okay to look at the things going on with me to grow because we are all always growing and create this life that you really want. So that's why we share what we share is because first off, we've experienced pretty much all of the stuff that we've shared with you. It's not just from clients, but that's how we can come to our clients and say, hey,
Mhm.
I have the skills and the experience to help you get through this.
Yeah.
Because, you know, while I am not coming from exactly the same place as you, because we all have our unique experience, I am here in a way that can support you growing through it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Beautiful.
So, is there anything else you want to share about this?
No, I feel very complete.
It was a beautiful, juicy topic, and I'm so glad that we did it. Um, Please, if you have something going on and we can support you in, like, what can you do to kind of look at your patterns, or where you feel like Shanda said, I don't know. Let
Mm.
us walk you through finding the I do know, because it is there. Always, always. That's a statement. It is a coping mechanism to keep you from looking at what makes you afraid, by the way. Um, and we all have it. But please reach out to us, comment. Um, we have many videos that have lots of stuff if you're not ready to reach out to somebody. And just know that we share this from our heart, and we are always here for you. And we can't wait to share our next conversation with you. So make sure you subscribe and share this with anybody you think this will support. And we will see you next week. Bye bye for now.